وكذلك أوحينا إليك روحا من أمرنا ما كنت تدري ما الكتاب ولا الإيمان ولكن جعلناه نورا نهدي به من نشاء من عبادنا وإنك لتهدي إلى صراط مستقيم صراط الله الذي له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ألا إلى الله تصير الأمور.
Okay, and from there, what was the next phase of development?
Well, as we began to spread out and to touch the families that were in the area, the numbers grew, and before long, the loft that we were in on Central Avenue became too small, and we wanted also a place that we could own, a place that we could call our own, because we were renting in that particular location, and we were above a automobile repair shop.
Right.
So it became a little difficult for us to do some of the things that we really wanted to do in terms of what we felt to be our obligations in terms of growth. So Imam Ahmed, asked us to go out and search out another facility that could perhaps accommodate our needs. It just so happened that at the time, my neighbor, who was a retired New York City Port Authority policeman, had retired and became a realtor. And I went to him and I said, look, our center is looking for, a place for us to relocate. He looked through the directory and came up with a site, several sites, for us to look at. One of them being 61 Lincoln Street. He took me there one rainy night and took me through the building. And I went in, and I just so happened I was coming from work, and I still had on my suit. And he took me into we didn't know, but the basement was full of water, right? But we looked at the whole place, and the place seemed suitable for us. And when I came home, of course, my wife asked me what happened to me. But from there, we located that particular site, and everyone came by, and we had a general consensus that, it was suitable for us to move into. And before you know it, we got the paperwork, and we went to the city to get some support from the city. We had some people who were in the city government at the time in East Orange, and they really helped us to secure the necessary paperwork as well as some financing. And we moved into 61 Lincoln Street, and that was kind of like the next growth step.
Right, and tell me about the growth of Islam at that time. I mean, you were the imam at that time. And just tell me about the appeal of Islam to the people and how quickly that place became insufficient.
Oh, wow. It was only a matter of 3 or 4 years that we were able to even house the people that we had on Lincoln Street. From 1983 until 1995, we were busting at the seams. We had people
but let me ask you,
in the street.
The people who were coming to Islam, who were they? Were they family members? Were they neighbors? Were they workers? Your co-workers? Who were the people accepting Islam at that time?
Well, they were extended family members of people, and they were just common people like ourselves who were looking for, a new way of living, a better way of living, and with that, people just started to come to us, because they identified, they identified with what we were doing, because we were very inclusive. We were always, whenever we had a program or an event, we would always invite our family members, relatives, friends, people that we, came in contact with, and that was the means by which that we had experienced such a tremendous amount of growth.
And you said something earlier about the bonds of brotherhood and the connections there. Did you find that was also important in pulling people to Islam and keeping the community?
It was very important. I think the sense of family that was established at the Islamic Center of East Orange when we were there was very strong. And the other thing is that I think was very significant is that we held ourselves accountable to the Jamaat, to the people. And I think it was one of the first times that we know of that we actually started producing quarterly reports, annual reports that we actually distributed to the members of the Islamic Center, telling people about, you know, the activities and financial reports associated with what was going on. So that, again, you know, the accountability, I think, also raised the trust level within the community that helped people to really accept the Islamic Center as a place that they wanted to be a part of.
But let me ask you, gentlemen, that alhamdulillah, Islam is definitely the fastest growing religion in the world and the fastest growing religion in America. But a majority of the people accepting Islam are women and Afro-Americans. I just want to know from your perspective, what do you think is the almost immediate appeal of Islam to African-Americans?
I think the immediate appeal is that by and large people are looking for something to fill the voids that they have in their lives. And Islam offers people, you know, answers to complex questions that are particularly in African American people's lives, in terms of gaps of, you know, social gaps, financial gaps, educational gaps. Islam is, you know, always reforming people. You know, it's always talking about reforming yourselves. So, and it has a methodology to doing that. It's not just something that's, you know, words without substance. And Islam offers that, you know, through the Quran and through the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. You know, it offers a clear path to self-empowerment, and powerless people are looking for that. And thus, as it was the history, you know, the people who were the people who were ostracized, you know, were looking for a way to, you know, to get up, and Islam offered them that. And that's one of the main things that I see, that so many people who are in a disadvantage, you know, and we're even finding this really among Caucasians too, because I mean, a lot of them, you know, have certain things in their lives that, you know, they're trying to, you know, resolve. And again, we're finding them, a lot of them are embracing Islam as well, along with us.
I think there are many reasons why African American people are drawn to Islam. I think one of the major reasons, of course, is that African American people have always been spiritual, and they've been always had this connection to their soul and the spirit of, and that, I think, is what kind of drives people to better understand this whole spiritual side of their humanity. I think the attraction that African Americans have to Islam is somewhat twofold, in the sense that it answers two questions for African Americans, and that is, one, their universal connection to humanity. It opens the door for them to see their connection to the universal family, to the human family, and where they fit within that human family. And then it answers another question. It answers a particular question as it relates to their ancestry or their history, and how that history connects them to, perhaps, you know, their acceptance of an inheritance that perhaps was taken from them by virtue of slavery. You know, they can connect to a history that was within a Muslim society. In many instances, you know, history shows that perhaps up to maybe 20% of the African slaves brought to America were taken from Muslim or Islamic societies. So it helps answer also a particular identification question, as well as the universal question that ties them to the universal family.
Gentlemen, in this area of New Jersey, there are a high concentration of Muslims and close proximity of some rather large cities. So we find that Muslims are quite involved in politics in this area. So if you can just talk about the Muslim involvement in the city government here.
Well, early on, the Islamic Center of East Orange, in its infancy, we made it one of factors of our organization that we had to become involved with local government. And as Brother Wahyuddin had mentioned, we did interface with the city officials when we first came to East Orange to to get them involved. We invited them to our functions and whatnot. And as a result of that, they became friends to us. And as a result of becoming friends, we were able to get some of the patrons jobs within the city, in city government. As for myself, even currently, I'm working with city government. I worked in the planning and development department here in the city of East Orange. Working on new projects for the city, but prior to that, even early on, even that within our sister city, the city of Newark, there were people who were involved with government early on. One of the names that pops out in my mind right now is Carl Sharif, who was very instrumental in getting one of the first African American mayors elected to city government, who was Mayor Gibson at that time. He played a significant role in his getting elected. And then we have people who are involved in county government, freeholders, Bilal Beasley, Mayor in Irvington, Mayor Wayne Smith, and we have people in very intricate and sensitive positions in city government in the city of East Orange. The clerk of the city of East Orange, one of our sisters, Cynthia Brown, she is actually right underneath the mayor in terms of her position in city government. And as not to mention fire and police. So, I mean, Muslims we're in the fibers of American government on the city level, state level, and even the federal government level.
Again, going back to the transition period when Imam Muhammad began his leadership of that was considered to be the national community at the time, he encouraged us to get involved in the government arena, which up to that point we were really kind of away from the government arena. Although we contacted them, we didn't engage it in terms of getting involved in the political arena. With that invitation and that encouragement, there were people like Yusuf Shakur who began to educate us about, because he had been involved in community as a community activist. He began to educate many of us about how to engage the political arena as well. He had students like Bilal Beasley, who is now a councilman as well as a freeholder. Right.
And what does that mean, a freeholder?
A freeholder is an individual within the county, which in Essex County includes cities like Newark, Irvington, East Orange. So it's like more of a regional kind of government. And he is a freeholder that is an administrator or an official within that county. In addition to that, he's a councilman within the township of Irvington. Again, it is people like him who actually encouraged others and taught others about how to advance and move through city government. So much so that now we have a Mayor Wayne Smith in Irvington, and we have a business administrator who is also the business administrator in the township of Irvington. Carl Sharif, again, is a mentor to many of those individuals aspiring to be in government. He was in the last election of Newark. He was Mayor Cory Booker's campaign manager, and as a result of his efforts in getting Mayor Cory Booker elected, there were a number of Muslims who also were asked to assume various positions within his administration. Today in the city of Newark, you have Ron Salahuddin, who also was an official in East Orange, but now he's a deputy mayor in the city of Newark. Through Carl Sharif, again, the mayor invited me after my retirement from Kraft Foods as an engineer. The mayor asked me to be a part of his administration, and currently I'm his senior advisor in the mayor's office.
But let me ask you, gentlemen, because we know, especially in today's world, that voting is important. And I just want you to, I know we have some Muslim officials, but unfortunately, the Muslims didn't play a big role in getting them elected. Just talk a bit about the importance of the Muslims understanding the voting process and making their vote count for something here.
I think it's important for Muslims to connect a responsibility associated with voting to what that vote translates into as a result of an elected official taking a position. And that is that the candidate that is elected to that office now makes certain decisions that impact the citizens, right? The vote is key to making sure that, number one, an agenda that is sensitive to the community is addressed. And if the individual that has a relationship with the community, it makes, for example, that community, it puts the community in a position to address certain needs that the community has. For example, the funds that flow into government come from the taxes. Those taxes are used to provide certain services to the community. Those services are entitlements that the citizens have. However, it's like the squeaky wheel gets the oil, you know. So therefore, the citizens have to be able to put forward a platform that addresses the needs of that particular community. And you need someone to be an advocate for those needs. So it's the vote that places the individual in a position of authority. However, the individual who votes for that person should also hold that individual accountable for the vote that is cast.
But it's also important to mention there, you're speaking on the local level, because on the national level, you know, some of the national government leaders, they make policies which affect Muslims all around the world. And if Muslims have a chance to influence the type of people who are going to be more conducive to policies which don't at least harm Muslims, you know, and maybe even to help Muslims around the world, we have to be conscious of that, that we have the power, this power in the ballot to do something about the conditions, our local conditions, and the international conditions of Muslims in the world, because we have many issues which need to be addressed. So, inshallah, I mean, are you guys taking any efforts to educate people about even just basically how to register to vote, you know, and being aware of the upcoming elections and the issues which are at hand?
Absolutely. And in every instance, for example, at the masjid that I am an imam of, we invite those candidates to come in and present their platforms, and we encourage all the Muslims to go out and participate in the voting process, understanding, of course, what each particular candidate is standing on, and at the same time providing some understanding of how government works and how policy is enacted. I think, as you pointed out, you know, we need to become more aware of those policies that impact the Muslim community and how they can constructively or adversely affect the Muslim community, and ask those officials, you know, at least to appeal to those officials that have adverse, you know, effects on the community to perhaps make changes in those policies. So I think the masajid and centers play a very significant role, first in educating people about, you know, their relationship with government, and then secondly, you know, establishing some advocacy that enables them to impact and influence what goes on within government.
MashaAllah. Well, my brothers, I just want to ask you this final question. As this program is entitled Muslims in America, and alhamdulillah, you guys have been Muslim for quite some time and seen a lot of developments in this country. So I want to know from you what you feel the outlook is for the future of Islam in America.
Islam has a very bright future here in America. Now, I have 4 generations of Muslims in my family.
MashaAllah.
And I'm looking forward to see a 5th generation of Muslims in my family, inshallah, God willing, you know. And so Islam has a very bright future because a lot of these members in my family, you know, by the grace of Allah, by the message of Islam, have, you know, risen higher and higher, you know, and are paying very, you know, and prominent, very important roles in terms of building the kinds of families that, you know, exemplify what America calls itself, you know, the greatest empire on the face of the earth. I mean, and Islam is making those kinds of people exist and live in America, you know. So Islam has a very bright future in America. Inshallah.
I think the future for Muslims in America is, if I were to use the word, is azim, which is tremendous and mighty. I think that the development of Islam in America is becoming more appreciated each day. If we look at, you know, some of the recent events that have taken place, for example, with Congressman Ellis who is a Muslim within America, taking the oath of office on a Quran that had been in the possession of Thomas Jefferson, speaks volumes to the fact that the fiber of America in many instances includes the spirit of Islam. You know, it's hard to believe that Thomas Jefferson had a Quran that he didn't read. It's understood that by virtue of his ownership, he read that book. And we find there are parallels within the spirit of America that parallel the spirit of the Quran. You know, the words of in America that speak to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness speak volumes to the spirit that is within the Quran of life and of liberty and the pursuit of that which is necessary for the human being to be happy. So I think the more we promote the universal message of Islam, I think the greater will be the receptivity of Islam by the American public. Whether they embrace Islam or not, I think that is up to Allah. Allah decides whether or not they embrace Islam. I think what's important for us to promote, though, is the clear message of Islam, so that human relationships could be established on the basis of truth and on the basis of knowledge and on the basis of understanding. And then on that basis, I think people can work for the common good and the society can grow.
MashaAllah. Gentlemen, Jazakallah khair. And it's very important that we do reach out and talk about the history of Islam with our elder brothers in Islam. And I thank you both for spending some time with us.
Thank
and
you.
I hope that our viewers who've been watching this interview are able to get some deeper insight into what it's like to be a Muslim here in America. And I invite you all to continue with me as I travel around this country and introduce you to the Muslims in America. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.